Tom Ford built a $2.8 billion empire. Then he walked away. What's left is a name on a storefront, a revolving door of creative directors, and an industry asking a very uncomfortable question. Without the man, is the brand anything at all? To understand what's been lost, you have to understand what was built. That story starts not with Tom Ford, the label, but with Tom Ford, the miracle worker at Gucci. In 1990, a young Texan with an architecture degree from Parsons joined Gucci as a women's wear designer. At the time, Gucci was drowning. By 1993, the house was bleeding $22 million on $230 million in sales. The brand was logo-heavy, directionless, and teetering on the edge of irrelevance. Within 2 years, Ford had climbed from designer to design director to creative director, and he accomplished what almost no one in fashion history has done. He completely reinvented a dying brand, transforming Gucci's annual sales from $230 million to $3 billion. Ford stripped away the grunge aesthetic that dominated the 90s and replaced it with something dangerous and irresistible: sex appeal wrapped in sophistication. His fall 1995 collection was the breakthrough moment. Velvet hip huggers, silk shirts unbuttoned to the navel, that particular shade of Gucci blue. Ford brought in collaborators like Karine Roitfeld and Mario Testino to create the iconic campaigns that defined an era. Suddenly, everyone wanted in. That's not a turnaround. That's a resurrection. The way he got the job in the first place tells you everything about who this man is. When designer Kathy Hardwick finally agreed to interview him early in his career, she asked which European designers he admired most. Ford said Armani and Chanel. Months later, she asked why. His answer was because you were wearing something Armani. He was reading the room before he even entered it. This instinct, this almost supernatural ability to understand desire and project it back at people, was evident from childhood. He was rearranging furniture in his family's house at age 6 and giving his mother advice on her hair and shoes. Later, as a young man in New York, author Ian Falconer took him to Studio 54. The high glam, the disco aesthetics, the unapologetic theatricality of that world seeped into Ford's creative DNA and never left. So when Ford and his business partner Domenico De Sole departed Gucci in 2004 after a bitter power struggle with the PPR group, Ford did not disappear. He launched his own label in April 2005, and what he built became the first true luxury brand of the 21st century. Everything was controlled, every detail obsessed over. The menswear, the fragrances, the eyewear, the advertising. When he launched Black Orchid in 2006, he reportedly told Estee Lauder executives he wanted it to smell like a man's crotch. He actually tracked down one of only 4 existing black orchids in the world through a Swiss orchid expert and a Santa Barbara grower. That's the level of commitment we're talking about. The beauty business alone hit an estimated $1 billion in sales by 2017, making Tom Ford Beauty one of the most successful fragrance launches in modern luxury. His lipsticks, at $58 a tube, became status symbols. He dressed Daniel Craig as James Bond for 4 consecutive films. He directed 2 critically acclaimed movies, A Single Man and Nocturnal Animals. He became chairman of the Council of Fashion Designers of America. Tom Ford wasn't just a designer, he was a cultural force. Then, in November 2022, the announcement came. While LVMH and Kering continued their acquisition wars across luxury fashion, the Estee Lauder companies made a surprising move into the sector, acquiring the Tom Ford brand for $2.8 billion. The deal closed on April 28, 2023. Ford personally walked away with roughly $1.1 billion in cash after taxes, having owned 64% of the company since 2013. His net worth jumped to an estimated $1.2 billion, not counting a real estate portfolio valued at over $300 million, including an £80 million London mansion in Chelsea that became the United Kingdom's most expensive residential property transaction of 2024. Ford said all the right things, calling Estee Lauder the ideal home for the brand. But the structure of the deal itself planted the seeds of the identity crisis to come. Estee Lauder owned the brand and the beauty business. The fashion operations were licensed to the Ermenegildo Zegna Group under a 20-plus year agreement, placing Tom Ford alongside sister brand Thom Browne in Zegna's growing luxury portfolio. Eyewear stayed with Marcolin, the licensee since 2005. The brand was now split across 3 different corporate entities, with no single obsessive visionary holding it all together. That same day, April 28, 2023, Peter Hawings was named creative director. Ford had hand-picked him. Hawings had worked alongside Ford for years and knew the aesthetic intimately, perhaps too intimately. His first collection debuted at Milan Fashion Week in September 2023, and the reviews were polite but pointed. WWD called it very controlled, very commercial, noting it revisited Ford's greatest hits. The hope was that Hawings would grow into the role and find his own voice. His second collection did not dare enough, critics said. He was producing near facsimiles of Ford's work. When Hawings told Vogue that his vision of sexiness would be probably more subtle than Tom's, it raised an uncomfortable question: can you do Tom Ford without doing Tom Ford? The answer, apparently, was no. On July 22, 2024, barely 15 months after his appointment, Peter Hawings was out. Sources described the departure as very sudden. There was reportedly no single triggering event, just a lack of chemistry with the team. Others were blunter. There were several decisions made during the Hawings era that were brand damaging, and Tom Ford noticed. The quick exit exposed a fundamental vulnerability. When an industry analyst observed that when Tom Ford started his own brand, there were no established house codes, no core products driving predictable recurring revenues, no stores to sell them in, the implication was clear. The house codes were Tom Ford himself, his taste, his control, his persona. Remove him, and what remains? 6 weeks later, on September 4, 2024, the answer arrived in the form of Haider Ackermann. Born in Bogota, Colombia, raised across Ethiopia, Chad, Algeria, the Netherlands, and Belgium, trained at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp, Ackermann was the opposite of a safe choice. His longtime muse is Tilda Swinton. His design philosophy could not have been more different from Ford's maximalist seduction. As Ackermann himself introduced his debut show, he set up a contrast, calling one figure nightlife and calling himself the morning after. That debut came on March 5th, 2025, at Paris Fashion Week, marking the first time the American label had ever staged a show in the French capital. The setting was the Pavillon Vendôme, all mirrored interiors, low lighting, plush seating, and potent dry martinis. Backstage, Ackermann told reporters that he hoped he had seduced them. By all accounts, he had. The audience erupted in a standing ovation. Tom Ford was there, Zegna was there, Daphne Guinness was there, Jared Leto was there. The industry exhaled. But one good show doesn't resolve the deeper tension. Zegna's chairman Gildo Zegna has said repeatedly that the goal is to propel Tom Ford fashion into the top 10 luxury fashion names in the world. The plan includes doubling the store count and relaunching women's wear with a focus on handbags, since menswear previously made up 2/3 of sales. Those are ambitious corporate targets. Meanwhile, the real Tom Ford is making movies again. He's directing an adaptation of Anne Rice's Cry to Heaven with a staggering cast: Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Adele in her acting debut, Colin Firth, Paul Bettany, Hunter Schafer, and more. He bought his London mansion. He's living his life. He's a billionaire, a vegan since 2020, teetotal since 2019. He lost his husband Richard Buckley in September 2021 after 35 years together. He's raising their son, Alexander. The name Tom Ford still sits on storefronts around the world, but the man behind it has moved on. And the brand, now divided among corporate licensees and steered by its third creative director in 2 years, is still searching for something that might be impossible to replicate. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about Tom Ford, the brand, and it's the same thing that made it extraordinary in the first place. It was never really a fashion house. It was one man's taste, made tangible. And you can buy a name for $2.8 billion, but you cannot buy taste.